Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I am coming to you live from Florida. And if you're new to my content, I help people, I guide them on their healing journey, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And what we do every single Monday, we get together and we talk about a chapter in whatever book we're reading. So I like to pick a lot of books that have to do with spiritual development. This one I absolutely love. It's called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And we're on, I think it's chapter 7. And this chapter is all about love. So if you are joining me for Book Club Live, let me know when you get here. And it's good to see you. And if you are catching the replay, let me know when you're on the replay. If you've got any questions, comments, things that you want to share with insights from this chapter, always put them in the comments. I always read them. So this chapter is all about the concept of love. And remember, the game of life and how to play it, she's basically setting up each chapter laws. I mean, as clear as the law of gravity that we all know and work with on a daily basis. The other spiritual laws, well, gravity's not a spiritual law, but the spiritual laws of the universe to help you live the life of your dreams, to help you live the life that you want to live and have peace and ease within it. And so she talks about this concept of love. And she says, I love the way that this started out. Every man on this planet is taking his initiation in love. So what she kind of put forth is that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. We are all learning what love is and how to love. I don't know why my face is making crazy colors over there on Instagram when I back away, but sorry guys. So what does love mean to you? I think this is an interesting thing to consider, and I kind of would like to hear. So when you hear the word love, what comes to mind for you? I think a lot of people, when they hear the word love, they think of romantic love. Those of you that have taken mastery, it's one of the first things I speak about is like, what is love? And love, to me, is completely non-judgmental. Love is all-allowing. Love has no preference. Love doesn't really have an opinion. It is just receptive. Now, can you imagine living in a way that you were expressing love all of the time? This is kind of the, when she says this is our initiation here, this is what we're all seeking to do. So can we be in a space where all of our interactions, my interactions with you guys, my interactions with my family, with my closest relationships, can you be in a space where you are non-judgmental, where you are all allowing, where you are receptive to just whatever is showing up? It's a very difficult thing. You know, that kind of love is very selfless, right? There's no fear and there's no demanding of anything in return. It's kind of like if you think about the way the sky is with the weather. Like the sky last week, we all know I had, Debbie moving through here, and so I lost power halfway through this, but the sky is all allowing no matter what's in it, right? It just allows the sunshine, it allows the hurricane, it allows the rainbows, it allows the snow, it allows everything. It has no preference, it has no judgment. It is simply all allowing. It doesn't fear anything that flows through. And what she's saying is that if you can get to that point on this human journey where you can simply be love, be non-judgmental, be all-allowing, that is the space where you are then going to find everything open up to you, that fourth dimension where everything is just peaceful and loving. And don't demand anything in return, right? So the love is this, she says love is God and is the manifesting force. So it's the strongest magnetic force in the universe. Yeah. The grace of God in here, the way she writes it, is that love is God. God is love. Right? And that is how you're able to connect in to that divinity. It is through the expression of love. It's just beautiful. And the way to lose it, man, right, where we have our ego minds and they tend to have a lot to say, like judgmental things, being resistant to what's there, not allowing it, right, all that sort of stuff. She says man is selfish, tyrannical, or fearful in his affections, thereby losing the things that he loves. This is why jealousy kills relationships. It's how we lose things. It's the enemy of love is what our ego mind kind of gets into. Our preferences, our way of looking at things, blah, 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 the way we think things ought to be, should be, whatever it is. That's what pulls us out of this space. And it's like our job to figure out, okay, how do I stay in it? So we have to call ourselves out, right? She shares this story of this woman who is like in a relationship. She's super happy, and the guy goes off and namaste. Hey, Lou. Exactly. I see the divinity in you. We'll talk about that in a minute. So this example she gives is this woman who's in a relationship, and the guy goes off with another woman. And she is angry and spiteful, right? And suffering. And she's like, how could he leave me? I loved him. And Florence, right, is treating this woman. And she basically calls her out and says, that's not love. Like, you are being judgmental. You are being selfish in what you're desiring. You're not being allowing for what's here. And that's not love. Love is just true non-attachment to outcome. Love is just non-judgmental. And so it's really interesting. I think it's important sometimes to have people in your life that will call you out when your ego is running the show versus an openness and love running the show. It's just very different. I'm sorry about the lighting over here, guys. I have no idea what it's doing. It's not like I have a filter on. It's just like deciding. I have no idea. Sorry. Okay. So she then goes on to say, when you are no longer disturbed by this guy's cruelty for leaving you, he will cease to be cruel, and you are attracting this in through your own emotions. I wanted to pause on that because I think a lot of people, at least I witness it, the victim mentality comes up for people. Well, you did this to me. Well, he left me, right? He's the bad one. I'm the victim. And that's a very easy mentality to fall into. Society will even agree with you, right? But the truth of the matter is, if you look at the essence of what's happening, you're having an internal response to whatever's showing up. Rather than being like the sky and saying, I'm all allowing to this, I am, non-judgmental, I have no attachment, right? Because that is true love. You're actually saying, no, it should be this way, it ought to be this way, how come it's this way, blah, 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 blah. You're resisting what's here. That's not love. And it's going to create difficulty within you, and it's an internal response that you're having. Okay, so what Florence was trying to do with this woman was to have her see, like, stop being angry about this, stop having a selfish response. If you actually want him back, love him. Be that unconditional, all-allowing force. And she says he will either come back or you will attract the equivalent type of love back, because what you put out, you get. So if you're putting out these feelings of anger and resentment, etc., you're going to get situations that cause anger, resentment, etc. I mean, this is like, put a 1 in the chat if you're with me, because this is very difficult. I think this is where a lot of times spiritual teachings fall down, because people think, no, that's not right. Like, I am the victim. This shouldn't have happened. It's not fair that he left, blah, 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 blah. Hey, Charlotte. And truth of the matter, hey there. Okay, we got 1s over here. I'm glad this is making sense. Like, this is it. It's the crux. And it's so hard to see it in your own life. Like, maybe it's okay to see it in this story. But when it's your own life, it's kind of rough, because it requires massive responsibility. And that nothing dictates your world except for you. Whatever happens in the external world, you are having a response to it, and you have complete control of that. I'm glad you all see this for what it is. Okay, everybody's with me. And so she says, her advice to her, she says, look, there's a brotherhood in India that doesn't say good morning. Rather, they say the words that mean, I salute the divinity in you, right? Namaste, right? Doesn't it mean the light in me sees and honors the light in you? The ancient philosophy that I study, they say Jai Bhagwan, and it means, victory to the spirit, right? It's always seeing that, hey, there's something beyond the ego mind. There is something within you that can be non-judgmental, that can be all-allowing, and that's what I want to see in you. That's what I'm looking for. And she says, look, that's a powerful greeting, and if you can see every single person in that way and just see their divinity, you're going to keep your heart open, and you're just going to be looking to draw that out, right? People rise to the occasion. They 100% do of what you expect of them. And so if you just speak to and see that divinity, that eventually will be what shows up and comes back. It is amazing, okay? It is absolutely amazing to watch happen. It wasn't on this page, but where was it? Well, it came later. We'll get to it later. The thing with the marble and the angel inside of it. I want to come back to that. But she says, this is the best lesson for your life. there is an old saying, no man is your enemy, no man is your friend, every man is your teacher. And those of you that have taken inner management mastery, what do I say all the time? Your trigger is your teacher. Okay? And the sooner you realize that, the more life is going to open up for you, because you start to realize, holy cow, I'm reacting and responding to this in a way from something within me that's actually unfinished. Like, I'm either going to have my heart open or I'm going to close it. And you have to start to see, okay, this person occurred, right? Like this man left me, right, in this situation. So what within me is hurt? Do I feel abandoned? Do I feel not lovable, right? What is it within me that got triggered, right? Because this guy is just playing out, he's just living life. Life is not for you or against you. Life is neutral. But we take it personally because there's something within us that gets bumped up against that doesn't feel good. And it's very easy to blame the external world, but the reality is that thing was living in you, all right? So she says, so one should become impersonal and learn what each man has to teach him, and soon he would learn his lessons and be free. This is what it's about. If you start to use life as a playground, as I tell all of you, use it as a playground to see, where do I need to develop? What's unfinished within me? Then every relationship with your boss, with your colleagues, with your significant other, with your parents, with your siblings, with the people on the street when you're driving, whatever, every situation starts to open up these learning moments where you get triggered, and rather than getting upset at the person, you go, well, they're teaching me something. What are they teaching me? And what is it within me, right? That got triggered. That's your work. And what she's saying, if you start to do that and you start to realize those responses within you and you start to clear them out of you, that's when you'll actually be free. That's what sets you free. Okay, it's incredible to do. It's something I've been working on for the last decade of my life. And I tell you what, it is amazing to clear these things out. You feel so much better. And you see life as it's actually happening versus through these lenses of your painful past. Okay, and it's just phenomenal. So the woman's lover was teaching her selfless love, which every man sooner or later must learn, right? So in this scenario with this woman and the guy that left, she was being taught the lesson of selfless love, complete non-attachment, no judgment, all allowing, receptive. And funny enough, in that story, right, once she completely switched into that and just said, I sent him love, he came around and came back to her and they got married. It's amazing that you can't control other people. You can only control you, but you control those internal responses, and it's amazing what happens. She says, suffering is not necessary for man's development, but it is the result of violation of spiritual law. But few people seem able to rouse themselves from their soul sleep without it. What she's saying is you don't actually have to go through painful situations to figure this out. Like, you can just wake up one day and see that this is how the game is played. But she says most people, their soul is so asleep, right? The ego has taken the front seat and is driving the ship and making it miserable. That a lot of times an intense thing has to happen for people to come back to this reality, for their soul to wake up, for the spirit within you to actually have a say in what's going on, and for true love to shine through. But that's not required, right? Anyone can wake up in this game. It's just you got to make a choice. She says, when people are happy, they usually become selfish, and automatically the law of karma is set into action, and man often suffers loss through lack of appreciation. People forget to be loving, to be kind, to send this out. When everything's going great, they become way selfish. They start to kind of hoard things. She talks about that money mindset with people, and you create your own problems, right? Because you're violating the law. Just fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I enjoyed this chapter. I've actually read it like 4 times. So I was like, man, she points out a lot of like really good stuff in here. The next section kind of got into like money mindset. She talks about, in letting it go out fearlessly and cheerfully, you open the way for more to come in. For God is man's unfailing and inexhaustible supply. Hoarding and saving is going to get you the opposite, right? It has to be in flow. So there are times in life where it makes sense to save and build up your reserves and have like security for yourself. But at the same time, if something comes along that you need to use your money, and even the principal, she says, use it, because God is the supply. When it goes out, you'll make room for it to come back in, right? And if you don't, if you just hoard, eventually issues will befall you. Okay, that's what she's saying. She says, this is the spiritual attitude towards money, and the great bank of the universe never fails. How many of you have experienced this? I know I have. Like in my entrepreneurial career, I have invested a lot in programs, coaches, training, and some of them, significant money, many thousands of dollars, and sometimes at times when I didn't have that kind of money coming in. And every single time, like I remember once there was a program that I was going to take, it was $6,000. And I was like, oh, and I had this thought in my head, like, Danielle, if you were a stock, you're undervalued, right? And you're worth more, but you need to get through some mindset stuff. You got to shift things. This person seems to have a program that's going to help you do that. And I thought, okay, so it's like an investment in me. So it's like I'm spending $6,000 to buy this stock while it's cheap so that it can go up. And I thought, okay, I'll just do it. So I spent the $6,000. I pulled it out of savings. And literally a week later, I got a check from my grandfather's estate for $10,000. So it replaced it and then some. And I just went, and I was totally not expecting it. And I just went, that's how it works. I mean, that was like such an example for me of, okay, like when you let it open, it flows back in. Has anyone else experienced something like that? Because I love sharing these stories. I see it happen over and over and over and over and over again. And it's continued to happen. Last year, I made an investment, and literally within the month after doing it, I doubled my income. And so I, again, made back my investment plus some. Just incredible from some of the things I was learning. So she says, follow the path of love and all things are added. For God is love and God is the supply. Follow the path of selfishness and greed and the supply vanishes because you become separate from it. All right. She talks about the lady who was wealthy and had all of these necklaces that she would buy, but she would never wear them. So she was buying them, which if she had used them, okay, but she was buying them and just hoarding them. She was keeping them wrapped up in tissue paper. She was keeping them separate. There was like 60 something of these necklaces. And in time, she says the woman's arms gradually became paralyzed from holding on to things. How fascinating, right? The body keeps the score. The body will show patterns, emotional behaviors that we're doing again and again. And eventually, she was considered incapable of looking after her own affairs, and things started to crumble. So man, in ignorance of the law, brings about its own destruction. Super fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So, she talked about just continuing. Love and goodwill are invaluable in business. So a lot of you, I know, are entrepreneurs and are doing business, and it can be very easy to get triggered in business because you're dealing with people. And so there's a playground of opportunity for triggers to come out. It's for me, it's been where my spiritual growth has happened. I've been very grateful. But I have on my phone, like, how we look at our phones so often, like check the time, check a text message, whatever. So I have as a reminder on my phone, it's like it is my background. It says, open your heart, see the divine in everyone. Why? Because I know if I live with an open heart, I am being loving. I am being non-judgmental. I am being all-allowing. I am not being attached. And if I can see the divine in others, no matter what is going on, right? No matter what is going on in the situation, they're screaming at me, they're seeing this, they're seeing that. If I just go, okay, that's their ego. That's not them. I'm just going to see the divine in them and just speak to that. It is amazing how people switch in conversation. And they feel something. They don't even know what you're doing, but they energetically feel something like, there's something different here, right? They start to soften. They're like, this person really hears me. They feel very connected. It's, it's not really a trick, but it is the trick, right? It's how you win the game. It's, being open, all allowing, and also non-judgmental, but seeing the divine in everyone. And that's all you see. And that's all you speak to. And I promise you, it's like the Pygmalion effect, right? People raise to the level of expectation that you hold for them. So if you speak to and hold that level, guess what they're going to have to do? The divine in them is going to have to raise up. If the wrong cannot be righted, its effect can be neutralized by by doing someone a kindness in the present. So this chapter, she kind of bounced along. It was like, this section was this section was that. That's why I read it so many times. I was like, wait, where's the thread here? But what she was saying was, look, if you've wronged someone in the past, if you did something wrong, like you can't go back and fix the past. But she's saying, like, energetically, it can be neutralized by doing a kindness now in the present. Okay, so if any of you have regrets about, oh, I said this to somebody, I did that, or whatever, do a kindness. Be kind. Do some act of kindness, right? A gift out of nowhere, or whatever you can do to support. And she says that neutralizes it. Okay? Don't carry around sorrow. Don't carry around regret. Don't carry around remorse. She says it tears down the cells of the body. It is poison. Anger is poison. All of this stuff is literal poison for the atmosphere that you are living in, your physical body. And if you're not careful, you can make yourself sick if you're carrying around this stuff. So open your heart, let go of these things, do what you can. All right? She says the mortal mind loves to hang on to its griefs and its regrets, right? The ego is very good. I should have done this. I can't believe I did that. Oh, I hurt that person. Da, 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 da. What am I going to do? And it just like ruminates and ruminates and ruminates. She says the ego mind is really good at that. She called it the mortal mind, right? Because we are mortal here. But the immortal aspect of ourselves, right? It's beyond that. So she says just watch it. Watch your thoughts. Even in parenting, I thought this was really interesting. She says, there was the old idea that if a woman didn't worry about her children, then she wasn't a good mother. But then they came to realize that the mother fear became responsible for a lot of disease and accidents that would happen to children. Why? Because what you think, you will create. And so if you're constantly in fear that your child is sick, that something is wrong with them, that they're going to get the measles, they're going to get whatever, you're going to draw it in. So what she says is very careful. Be very careful. Okay? Happy is the mother who can say sincerely that she puts her child in God's hands and knows, therefore, that he is divinely protected. Can you just trust that you can do everything, and stay in that place and not have to be fearful because there is a divine protection out there? And if you continue to speak that into existence, there will always be divine protection, right? She talks about an example of a woman who woke suddenly in the middle of the night thinking about her brother. And this woman knew, if I'm in fear for my brother, I'm attracting fearful situations for him. So I am going to cancel that thought. And instead, I am going to state, and I thought this was beautiful, man is a perfect idea in divine mind and is always in his right place. Therefore, my brother is in his right place and is divinely protected. So rather than fear, she went for the divine protection. Affirmed it, went back to bed, finds out the next day her brother was in a mine where an explosion went off and somehow was just out of the way and didn't get hurt. And she says, we can do that for one another. We actually have the power to impact the situations of one another. So that's super fascinating. Which means that we should be able to impact just the earth, right? Rather than getting into fear about this group or that group and the politics and blah, 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 blah. Can we just say, hey, it's all part of the divine plan, and just hold that notion that everyone is divinely protected and everyone is learning what they need to learn while here on this planet and during their soul's journey. And the biggest thing to learn, right, it's an initiation in love. Can I love another whom I disagree with? Can I love another who has harmed me? Can I send love, be open, be non-judgmental, allow my ego to go aside and just be that? My teacher was telling me a story. I think, who was it? The Buddha. Was it the Buddha? I think it was the Buddha. There was a line of people coming to talk, and this man just came up and spit in his face, just spit directly in his face. And how many people would get triggered? The mortal mind, the ego, would come in and bah. But what would love do? Love would be completely receptive and allowing. And so what did the Buddha do? Just wiped it off and said, is there anything else? And the man just started weeping because he'd never felt that kind of love before, right? Just when aggression comes in, if it meets aggression, if ego meets ego, there's explosion. But if it can meet love, it will hit and eventually it will soften, right? But if we keep going like this, we're not going to get anywhere, which this world right now is doing this. So we need to open our hearts and allow, right? It's not about getting taken advantage of. You can still act, but you can act from a place where you're not engaged with the ego. You can take care of things from a neutral place, right? Which feels very different, right? You've been held and spoken to in a place that comes from love but is stern versus one that's an ego that's glaring at you, right? We all know the difference. That's the space we're all seeking to get to. That is the initiation in love that she talks about. So this week, let's all try it, right? Open your heart, see the divine in everyone, see if you can speak from that space, and just see how it shifts you, because the truth of the matter, it really is just a totally different ball game for you internally and how you live your life, all right? Next week, intuition or guidance. Fantastic. So we'll be getting into that next Monday. I think we have 3 chapters left, yes, and I might have one Monday that I got to shift the time a little bit. I'll let you know, but I think next Monday we're fine. So I will see you next week. Have a beautiful week. If you have any comments, thoughts, whatever, I'll put them in the Telegram chat. I'll post this into the Telegram chat, and I'll see you next week. Lots of love, everybody.